Fuck it. We'll do it live. We are 1 minute early today for a late stream. So, apologies for the lateness. I needed to eat something. I think that's still a requirement. I'll have to check with the current regulations. I'm gonna share this on several places, and when I get done with that, I can kick this off. But I just wanted to say thank you to everybody who is here, who turned on notifications, who subscribed. You all are the reason I can do this. Um, and especially thank you to the people who've been here for years. I I'm not a pleasant person, and my streams are not a good time. And for all of you who have still stuck around for some reason, while I don't understand your choice, I respect it. Thank you. Um, but all that aside, um, let me get to, after I share this in a few groups, the sponsors for this bullshit. The sponsors include Love Java, Performance Butter Coffee with CBD in it, and MCT oils, and you can get that from Jessica Love. It's very good stuff, very effective. I've had 3 samples in the past, and they worked pretty well for what they were advertised for. So feel free to check that out. Also, feel free to check out Castle Keep Crafts for your fantasy goods and hand-painted stained glass, or just pick up one of these seedy guys. Um, Additionally, Necrotopia, a role-playing game. Feel free to check that out as well. That is a tabletop role-playing game where you survive the apocalypse. You and your friends get together, and the first campaign, I think, is beating Satan, and he's got like another one in the works. So there's plenty to go around. All that said, let's get into the bigger sponsors, which are Liberty Under Attack Publications. If you've got a Liberty book that you want published, and if you've got the money to put down, feel free to put it down in that place, because they will do your graphics, your narration, your binding, your publication. They will do it all. And if you want the full service package for 20% off, all of the things that I just said, feel free to hit them up and say that Jeremiah sent you for 20% off. And LibertyProfessionals, consulting for private security and private investigation in Virginia. Guy's a solid dude, and he will teach you how to be more secure, how to think more secure, and how to live more secure for the right price. He will also, his firm will also investigate in the Virginia area, and he's looking to expand ASAP. So the more business he gets, the more business I can drive his way, the sooner LibertyProfessionals can spread across America. So feel free to check that place out as well. All of these people help me dramatically by being my sponsors, and I thank all of them. And I also thank my patrons and anybody who donates to any of the sources. And all of that said, this stream is going to be somewhat dark because every fucking subject had to be terrible. So let me start with an update before we get into anything else. I'm not going to talk about the situation specifically, but something came up that basically might take my entire weekend. And it's, I'm fine with this. I just hope you all are as well. Because what it might mean is that I might not be able to put out content on certain days. I don't know how long it'll take to solve this, but I need to solve it. And no, it's not like I did something wrong. It's more that somebody needs assistance right now, and I hope to be able to be that assistance. That is as specific as I'm gonna get. Um, Hello, Finian. Hope your evening is going well. Um, but it's basically a semi-emergency, And if you decide that you want to help me eat while I deal with that emergency and also continue to bring you content, including the latest weekly hellscape, which I will be putting out on Friday for sure, then feel free to hit up any of the links in the description. I could damn well use some support. So all of that being said, something else to expect. I'm writing an article for Polyquads again, and this will be the paid one because the last one wasn't paid. The last one was just like an intro article, I guess, to my style or whatever. But they liked me good enough that they wanted me back on, so I'm going to be arguing against the concept of a border wall and a border in general with somebody who I don't know yet. So we will see how that goes. But all of that aside, I think that we have sufficient people in here to get started. Um, Lots of stuff. And this is an update as well, as to like the substance of things that were discussed before. And it is an update to the change.org petition. That update is brought to you courtesy of people who won't let it die, which is good, and I hope it doesn't. So let me bring that up, and and hopefully we can get many more signatures on it. Like honestly, I don't expect that we'll get more than 1,000. I think part of the problem is that Change isn't a petition platform necessarily as much as they are like a pay to win. Like picture if you paid for a video game that was multiplayer, and every time you paid a certain amount of money you got more points. That's what Change's model apparently is. They keep on telling me that they'll give me a certain amount more views on my petition if I pay them $15. I'm like, first off, no, and second off, there's no reason to do that if those people are equally not going to sign it as the other people who have already seen the petition who I didn't have to pay for. So I'm good. I'm not going to pay change.org any money, especially since they took fucking forever to get back to me anyway. Like, they're not a good company. I don't understand why they have a good rating with the Better Business Bureau or whatever. But uh, that negative rant aside, I just thought I'd give y'all an update. Oh, shit. Let me turn on my sponsors. Fucking extreme derp. This is the current state of the petition. So, not bad. Um, in terms of the amount of engagement that it has gotten. I didn't even expect it to break 500 with the amount of momentum it wouldn't get. But it's at 612 at this point. So if you want to help with that, please feel free to share it around. That petition needs eyes. And I can't share it in Discord. I would have kept the pressure up. I would have kept tagging everyone in servers, and but I can't do that because Discord lied to ban me. So all of that aside, let me fucking sorry. I'm I'm kind of scared. Point. Fucking. There we go. Sorry. Um, but all of that aside, what was I gonna get into? Right. So the meat of this particular thing today is going to be 9/11 because it's 9/11. Um, Better Business Bureau's shit. If you pay them, you have a high rating. Oh, I did not know that. I'll have to look into them a bit. But today's subject is 9/11. So let's get into some 9/11 jazz. Um, I want to bring up several subjects, and I want to start with this one. This is a quote, a direct quote from Zbigniew Brzezinski, who was CIA director at the time, to the Mujahideen during Operation Cyclone, where basically under Carter, fucking huge chunk of money was sent to the Mujahideen in the Middle East so that they could fight the Soviets, fight the Red Menace. And I oppose that, obviously, on many grounds, but one of the primary grounds is that it became the groundwork justification for all future invasions of the Middle East. Being that, there's suddenly this terrible terror threat that we must eliminate. But the terror threat was created by the US. It was created by the US in an attempt to fight the Red Menace. At least that was their claim. I kind of think that was a boogeyman, to be honest. But all of that aside, this is a real quote. That land over there is yours. You'll go back to it one day because your fight will prevail. You will have your homes and your mosques back again because your cause is right and God is on your side. He said that to the Mujahideen. And he said that so that he could fund the Mujahideen. So I want you guys, if you haven't looked into it, anybody watching this stream, to look into Operation Cyclone. Because if you don't already know that the US government was funding those people, then you should definitely look into it. It's one of the things that really red-pilled me in many respects. Because knowing that the U.S. government sowed the seeds for its own destruction, proverbially speaking, very much bothered me. So please look into that, right? And also look into, the sheer amount of people who have died because of fucking U.S. foreign policy. There are a chunk. And I wanna highlight this again, just like I did last year, and say, this is what they want you to forget, right? They want you to forget, fucking all of the people that they are responsible for killing. And in this particular case, I'm gonna bring up an example that's not very well known. And that example is the Al-Shifa pharmaceutical factory in Sudan. And that pharmaceutical factory was responsible for the health of the entire nation and of many surrounding areas. And it brought medicine to people with low income, and it made them capable of surviving in an environment that they might not have been able to otherwise, especially since these underprivileged countries had issues with sanitation and things, especially when the First World got at them, But the First World under Bill Clinton, bombed the Al-Shifa pharmaceutical factory. And why? Because they suspected weapons of mass destruction. Not like they've used that excuse anywhere before, but they bombed it. And as a result, 30,000 people died and many more got sick. Now, it didn't happen like all at once, but these diseases were preventable and these people died. So if it's not murder to take somebody's medicine away that they need to live, I don't know what is. I don't see a way around this being 30,000 people murdered by the US government in one fell swoop. So stuff like this happens all the time. The Highway of Death happened, where they gunned down a bunch of terrorists as they were fleeing among civilians, and a huge civilian death toll occurred. This is regular, right? But nobody gave a shit. The US people barely even knew about it or had heard of it. It doesn't matter that the US government kills a huge amount of foreign civilians because we've got the money to keep them at bay. So when the US was attacked once in huge amount of time that the US has been attacking other places, that was used not as an excuse to take out specific targets, but as an excuse to expand the same military program that caused the blowback to begin with. Now, I don't support the killing of 3,000 people on 9/11. It's tragic. Literally hashtag never forget. I hope people never forget and never stop mourning that loss as long as they need to. You know, it's not up to me to decide how other people mourn. Similarly, it's not up to the US to decide how other countries mourn. The huge civilian death toll caused by the US government. And it's not just the US, it's plenty of governments as well, but you know, let's be very specific and say that the US is one of the worst, if not the worst. And they barely get accountability. They barely get discussed when it comes to civilian death tolls. Most people don't give a shit. So I wanted to bring that up in context to this situation, which was, of course, the tragedy of 9/11. And I sincerely hope that this does not come across as though I don't care about the people who died in 9/11. I do, deeply. That's why I don't want anything like this to happen to anyone else, for any reason, because of any party. But the US government is responsible for countless 9/11 level civilian death tolls, and they almost never get held accountable for it. Like, if we got a notification every time a cop or a troop killed somebody, our phones would not be stopping, right? There'd be a huge amount of fucking ringing. You know, if we got that Amber Alert, our phones would just be constantly blaringly annoying us. And people might start to see that things weren't as good as they thought they were, you know? Or maybe it just desensitized them. Who the fuck knows? But I wanted to preface everything that I was saying today with that. And then maybe get you thinking 9/11 might just be another justification for making sure that happens. So let me close that particular tweet for Zbigniew Brzezinski, so that y'all can see the next thing that I was going to bring up, which in this case is James Corbett's series. And I'm not going to play the whole thing. Go to his channel, give him views, give him likes, give him, you know, fucking, he's one of the people that should get a huge amount of praise for his constant work. Him and his research team have consistently brought up good things to research, to discuss, and they've condensed it into a way that is not only fast and accessible, but reasonable. So please go to his channel and subscribe. He's better at talking about 9/11 than I am. And there's a shit ton there to talk about. But that's why I said, want to get angry about 9/11? James Corbett is your guy. Watch this first. And that's his 9/11 a conspiracy theory. And that's the first video that really started red pilling me on 9/11. Which started getting me thinking, like, you know, why are all these circumstances surrounding it seemingly tailor-made for massive wars that never end, and for a profit motive for everybody involved? So please watch that and, you know, check all of his sources. He includes all of his sources in that link. That's why I linked to his site instead of YouTube. And then after that, watch his series on whistleblowers, which I did link to on YouTube, but you can find his show notes in the description, because you can just scroll through that playlist and watch a long-ass series on whistleblowers. And I hope you do, because Kevin Ryan, UL spokesperson, I think he was like really high up in the company. It's been a bit since I watched these. Like, I watched it earlier today, but it's not like I took notes or anything. But he was like really high up in UL, and he knew that their safety specifications would have sufficiently dealt with the threat of a tower collapse like that. He went over the fact that their heat testing conclusively proved that even without the fireproofing that these big metal beams had, even without the fireproofing that they had, they would have been able to survive that sort of attack if that's all it was. So check that video out. That's one of like 5 he has here. Check out his video on Kate Jenkins. who was an EPA spokeswoman, or she worked for the EPA or something, and she was instrumental in holding accountable the people who were responsible for lying about the air quality after 9/11. And she was basically buried. Like, all these people, there's a common theme. They were all, like, basically buried. They had their job taken from them. They had other aspects of their life threatened. And they were essentially censored for daring to go against the official narrative. And Kate is one of the people who was, because she said that they were like, they were treating people in a neighboring place in New York for like a ninth the amount of asbestos exposure, and that's not even accounting for the other chemicals that were present in the environment. So please watch her on that. And please watch the one on Barry Jennings, who was a guy who was there for like a meeting to discuss national security or something, and at World Trade Center 7, and he went inside for this meeting, and they told him to get the fuck out of there. And so he did. He tried to get out of there, and he got trapped after an explosion knocked him up a flight of stairs, at least according to his testimony. So if you listen to that guy, you'll hear a guy who was on the ground, who has credible testimony, and who was even interviewed by the BBC, who, left out the convenient fact that he was fucking blown upstairs. And he had a huge amount of his life threatened while he was still alive. He's not alive anymore. He died in like 2011. And I hope you watch that one too, because it's telling that this guy who was, he had nothing to gain from being a fabricator about this. And he talked about the fact that the lobby was in pristine condition before he got in there. And after he got out, it looked like it had been completely destroyed, like gutted. And he had to step over bodies to get out a hole that the firefighters had to make because the doors were sealed shut or something like that. And he was censored too. Like, he had his job threatened. So he basically said, please don't air the interviews to the people who are going to air them. And they didn't until after he died, because, obviously he can't lose his job if he's dead. So there's no point in keeping it quiet. But please watch that for him. Please watch the thing for Michael Springman, who blew the whistle on essentially an embassy, which was responsible for issuing visas, issuing, obviously fraudulent visas to the supposed hijackers. And there's much more in that video too. Please check that out. And William Rodriguez, who was a janitor at the time, and he had a master key to the joint and was helping people get out. He was a hero for a really long time. And then the media didn't like what he was saying, which was that there was a primary explosion at the sub-basement level, and then the plane hit. Which would explain why towers, which were supposed to last like 15 to 20 minutes, lasted like 2. Just... I don't support one theory or the other. I don't know for a fact that this was an inside job, so I'm not saying it was. But if you look into these fucking people, you'll find out that there's a shit ton here that kind of makes it seem like an inside job. So please feel free to watch that video and wrong think with me. Well, those videos, all of those videos, just if you have like 2.5 hours to hollow out, just watch those videos and then, use the rest of the time to research his claims, because he makes rock solid claims here. So please consider that. And then here's just a list of things to research. Uh, iron-rich spheres were found at the site. Those iron-rich spheres were supposedly melted metal that came from the steel, and jet fuel pools should not have been able to create iron-rich spheres. So it's something to look into, or look into P-Tech, which looked into the like official. It was the official analysis company or whatever, and all of their records were sealed. They didn't want anybody to see it, right? So look into them. Look into the faulty commission report and the fact that combined with the faulty NIST report that went into it, which was all done like as Corbett so eloquently put it, behind closed doors, in secret, off the record, fucking much more eloquently than I'm doing it right now. And just think maybe these people aren't on the up and up, Talk about fucking Able Danger, which was drills for how to deal with these sorts of attacks. Talk about the Budget Analyst Office, where like $2.3 trillion was lost. Talk about the dancing Israelis who were fucking dancing on rooftops a couple days before it happened or whatever, like the day before or whatever. It was like before it, really close to the incident. And they were pointing at it, taking pictures and dancing and laughing. Why? And that missing Rumsfeld money. Rumsfeld was in the fucking supposedly working with the Pentagon to analyze missing money. Where'd that go, right? Fucking World Trade Center 7. Why did it collapse in free fall when that guy Barry Jennings said that he felt explosions that knocked him an entire flight of stairs upward, right? Why did Lucky Larry Silverstein get all that insurance money? Why were there many drills conducted? Why did they absolutely know how to deal with these things, and why didn't they? Why did Tim Osmond, a CIA asset later called, Osama bin Laden, suddenly become the bad guy when he was lauded as a brave warrior for the right side of history before then? Surviving passports. Oh, we just found these, So it's a meme now, just using those passports to bulletproof, to flame-proof, and all these destroyed records of all these things that the government probably didn't want to talk about or analyze. Fucking maybe there's like I don't know, something wrong with the official story. Maybe people should look into that. But I'm not as eloquent, and I don't want to take away from his videos. So I hope y'all go watch those videos, because he has a series of good points. He's also good at covering these sorts of things regularly, so please subscribe to James Corbett. But, watch those videos. Please do that. Because there is so much wrong with the official story, and it all needs to be discussed. So, there's not much more to say about that. 9/11 was a tragedy. How many tragedies have the U.S. government put in place? Fucking, it was a tragedy. But how many more tragedies have been done in its name? In the name of, never again, never forget. How many troops have died in foreign conflicts? The illegal invasions of Iraq, Afghanistan, the basic occupation of places like Syria, Yemen, Libya. Right? Why aren't these talked about? Why isn't everybody talking about them? Well, because Americans care about America. So when it happens here, then suddenly it's a problem. But when it happens over there, every day, with few exceptions, that's totally fine, Anyway, I'm going to check the chat and see if anybody's got anything to say. Welcome to the chat, Cheech and Jonathan Picone. It's been a while. But I'm relatively energetic. I refreshed my supply of caffeine pills, so I'm gonna have to pick a bunch of these up later. That wasn't very smart. But fucking look into these things. Educate yourself. Don't let me be your educator. I'm a greasy haired fucking. I wanted to take a shower, but I had to choose between that and eating today because I fucking went most of the day without my workout and then shit came up. So please, like, find, if I'm not good enough, find better people. Just look into this, right? Fucking look at those names, Google them, find whatever source you're okay with, right? Just research for yourself, please. Um, all of that aside, I just thought I'd get into the things that people can look into, and I didn't even cover them all related to 9/11, so that people could start sinking their teeth into it. So this stream is going to be like closer to an hour today, because I've got a gaming session with my family, but the the essential notion here: don't listen to me. Hear what I'm saying, maybe, and then use it as a jump off point. There are better people to talk about these things than I am. And with that in mind, let's get into the Nazi element. Because, yet again, I have to tell people that Nazis were right wing. And that being right wing doesn't automatically make you fucking virtuous. Now, I'm not going to say who this guy was, because frankly, it's not very relevant in my view. But I got into an argument with a guy in a Facebook group devoted to anarcho-capitalism, right? Which means they should be against the state in all its forms. But what it means in a lot of cases is I don't like commies. That's what a lot of ANCAPs mean. I don't like left. That's what a lot of these people mean when they say, I'm ANCAP. And when you bring up the fact that not only can a right-wing government be authoritarian, but they have been in the past, and people like Hitler qualify as right-wing, these people start to have an aneurysm. And so that happened today when a guy, I'm also not going to say, whatever, you can find this if you want. It's breadcrumbs if you actually give a shit, but the people aren't very relevant. The ideas are. So this guy comes in and he says, "Hey, can we kick all the Nazis from the anarcho-capitalist community because they shouldn't be here?" And I agree with that. In essence, if there's been many times when people have been kicked for being too far left. They've been kicked for turning it into a debate group between communists and capitalists. And there's been other times when people have suggested letting them in so that they could fucking have a conversation or a debate or whatever. And there have been some people that have disagreed, or that have agreed, but most of them disagreed because we got to have my ideological homogeneity, right? So this group is okay with policing for ideological homogeneity, but they're not okay with policing like when it comes to the left, but they're not okay with policing that when it comes to the far right, when it comes to the authoritarian right. And I wanted to sort of get into that with these people because so many people in the fucking comments were calling this person a fascist. Seriously calling them a fascist, not joking at all. Because he was suggesting removing people from a group to promote, voluntary association with only one class of person. And, that could be considered a tenet of fascism if your basis was based on something like, race, sex, neurodiversity status. But it's not fascism when it comes to making sure that a group follows rules or fits within a framework of that group. When I, for instance, ran that server for anti-pedo action, I had rules against pedophiles joining, people who sympathized with pedos joining, and I would regularly, uh, you know, fucking remove people who weren't following the rules. And I got called an authoritarian, a fascist, a cult leader, a violent gang leader, whatever, all of these things, establishment shill, for doing that. And so this subject is fresh in my mind, and it's fresh to the point where I'm saying, like, fuck you, it's not fascism to have your group be specifically what your group is, unless your group is fascist. I mean, plenty of different groups practice sort of moderation, right? It's not just a thing fascists do, and so it's not automatically fascism to do it. And if an anarcho-capitalist community wanted to keep only people in it who are anarcho-capitalist, that's not fascism. Sorry to say, fascism is a fucking state of government. It's not an anarchist anything. And it's certainly not an anarchist saying you can't be here if you're a Nazi, right? So this led to the same conversation I've had too many fucking times because people are goddamn stupid about the fact that, yes, Nazis and fascists were right wing. Because not everything leftist is bad and not everything bad is leftist. Um, but apparently, fucking ideological reframers want to make it seem as though this guy literally said the same stupid fucking thing I've heard from so many goddamn people. And that stupid fucking thing he said was that the right is 0% government and the left is 100%. He said it's a sliding scale and the left is 100% and the right is 0%. Because he's fucking stupid, at least about this particular subject. And that's not only ahistorical, um, but it's also ignorant of, like, reason, because the purpose of the wings and the labeling thereof is to say there's a difference between different types of government. It's not to say that one is 100% and one is 0. And in this particular case, the different types of government are vertical versus horizontal hierarchy. And those sorts of distinctions define the way the government looks. Now, they both have certain things in common if they're put to their extreme, because they're government, and fundamentally government operates similarly, because it's still a force mechanism that operates monopolistically. But that doesn't mean that it's all the same wing. It doesn't mean that it's all the same persuasion. So not only is that dumb, but he called me a fucking sophist for daring to go against his dumb idea of being dumb and saying that right-wingers are for 0% government, which is patently, historically, and manifestly false. But don't let that stop you, if you're fucking listening to this. So I just wanted to remind people about what happened to the left-wingers in the Nazi Party, so that people can see for a fact that these people were right-wing. So let me bring this up here. This is the Encyclopedia Britannica thing on the night of Long Knives. Night of Long Knives in German History, Purge of Nazi Leaders by Adolf Hitler on June 30th, 1934. Fearing that the paramilitary SA had become too powerful, Hitler ordered his elite SS guards to murder the organization's leader, including Ernst Röhm. Also killed that night were hundreds of other perceived opponents of Hitler. By the end of May 1934, Hitler had been chancellor for 16 months and dictator for 14 under the Enabling Act of March 24th, 1933. But two obstacles to his absolute power remained. First was his old comrade, Ernst Röhm, chief of staff of the SA. I'm gonna mispronounce this, but I think it's Sturmabteilung, German Assault Division, or Brown Shirts. Röhm wanted to have his troops incorporated into the new Wehrmacht, that was being prepared to take place of the Reichswehr, despite the fact that the conservative-minded generals were resolutely opposed to any such contamination of the army by the SA. Let that sink in for a second while I take a fucking glug of water. That the conservative-minded generals were resolutely opposed to any such contamination of the army by the SA, that being the left wing of Hitler's party. Second, German President Paul von Hindenburg was still alive and in office, and if he wished, could have stopped all of Hitler's plans by handing power over to the Reichswehr. Hitler, knowing that military strength was necessary for his foreign policy and that antagonizing the generals could be fatal to himself, decided to sacrifice Rom. This is Rom. Fucking egg-headed, stupid cunt. But at the same time, this was the face of left-wing Nazism. And it was soon to die. Right there for you. Heinrich Hoffmann took that picture, I guess. But really, ascertain why you probably had no idea who this was, because public schooling or whatever didn't teach you about the Night of the Long Knives. It just taught you Hitler bad, Hitler did bad, Hitler got killed. That's what the modern education system calls education. But here is proof that the Nazi Party wanted to purge its left wing. Because it was fundamentally rightist in nature and couldn't handle, quote, contamination. Let me scroll down and read more of this. Alleging that Rom was plotting a putsch, Hitler ordered a massacre. On the night of June 30th, 1934, Rom and many more leaders of the SA were shot by members of Heinrich Himmler's SS, Schutzstaffen, German protective echelon. Some of Hitler's other enemies were also murdered, including the last chancellor of the Weimar Republic, Kurt von Schlichter, George Strasser, who, until 1932, had been second only to Hitler in the Nazi Party, Bavarian ex-separatist Gustav von Kahr, conservative critic Edgar Jung, and Catholic professor Erich Klausener. Vice-Chancellor Franz von Papen only narrowly escaped inclusion among the victims, and he was dismissed from the vice-chancellorship 3 days later. The generals, whose chief spokesman was the Minister of Defense Werner von Blomberg, were certainly impressed by the efficiency with which Rom and his SA clique had been eliminated. Within weeks of Rom's death, Hitler made an attempt to settle the question of union with Austria through simple violence. With instructions from Berlin and with active help from the German legation in Vienna, Austrian Nazis on July 25, 1934, tried to take over the country's government by an insurrectionary putsch. They murdered Austrian Chancellor Engelbert Dollfuss in his chancellery, but the putsch failed in its main purpose. The news of it was received with consternation and disgust in the other European capitals, but the shock was greatest in Rome. Italian dictator Benito Mussolini sent 4 army divisions up the Brenner Pass and to the Carinthian frontier, and the Italian press vehemently denounced German imperialism and bad faith. Hitler, however, disclaimed all responsibility for the coup, sent a telegram of condolence to Australian President Wilhelm Miklas, and recalled his minister from Vienna. The next German minister there was Papen, with the mission of steering Austro-German relations into a friendly and normal channel again. Sooner after arriving in Vienna, he told U.S. Minister George S. Messersmith that all southeastern Europe to the borders of Turkey was Germany's natural hinterland, and that achieving control of Austria was to be the first step in that direction. So, Hindenburg died on August 2nd, 1934. Thereupon, the German generals agreed to the merging of the office of President of the Reich and Supreme Head of the Armed Forces with that of Chancellor in Hitler's person. And the consolidation of power that had begun barely a month before with the purge of Rom and the SA was complete. The Third Reich was henceforth a totalitarian structure with one man as head of state, commander-in-chief, and leader of the only political party. Please let that sink in. I don't I know I'm going to have to, so this is just in vain. And I know I probably lost viewers or whatever, like subscribers. But please let that sink in, because the whole idea of Nazis being left wing, when manifestly conservative politics dominated what they were doing, when tradition and the prevention of liberalism was their goal, when the fucking prime mentality of it was allowing capital just insofar as it served the state, fascism, is primarily anti-socialist. And when he purged all of his left wing, please don't ever call Nazis leftist again. Unless you mean like the early Nazis or something. Just accept that right-wingers can be evil too, and shut the fuck up and move on. Can we do that? If we're anarchists, maybe? I just thought I'd get that out of the way. I get so fucking irritated at that shit. Because it's like, those are the fucking sort of people that dislike socialists and communists and the left more than the state. And they are going to be the death of fucking anarchy. Aaron LaRusso in chat says, Corbett's 9/11 video is really well done. I've watched it a few times and get something new from it every time so far. Good! Yes, I hope people do. Mad Warrior says she's late but here. Hi! Chad Nutsbull says, finally I'm here. What did I miss? Nazis aren't left wing. 9/11 has a lot of suspicious shit attached to it. Our anti-pedophile petition seems locked at around 600, but that's possibly changing. There's an emergency that I have this weekend, so there's a possibility I won't be making content for a few days of it. What else? Fucking... Yeah, it seems pretty generally it so far. You didn't miss much. Like, this stream is going to be about an hour long, so... you won't miss much, but what you did miss was basically those things. And if you want to watch it again, you can. Gregory Patrick says, I get it, but Left America is the real fascist party in my neighborhood. I don't know why you would say that. I mean, maybe they seem that way because they're organized, but if what they're doing isn't for a single leader, if what they're doing isn't trying to get the central authority to endorse and co-sign all capital exchanges, if all capital exchanges aren't for the service of the state, then it's not fascism. You cannot like it. You can say that you don't like the way that they control speech or movement or whatever, but they're not fascists. That's not what fascism is. He says, I get threatened by left-wing factions every day I leave my house. I have to watch my words or I get threatened with baseball bats. I really, really feel bad for you. I definitely, they hurt my kids. I definitely don't approve of that action. All I'm saying is that there are evil people on both sides. Can we accept that? I hope we can, because it's true. And to just simply say that these people are fascist is to discount the entirety of like the struggle against fascism. So I hope that's not what you're here to do. They sell drugs and bully us. And again, I'm sorry to hear that. But like the drugs part alone should tell you something. Fascists weren't generally okay with drugs. I get it, but lefties hurt me all day every day. That means that in your particular situation, the left is the one hurting you. And I do, I feel bad for you. But call them leftists, not Nazis. That's all I'm saying. The people marching at Charlottesville were not leftists. Chad Nutsball says, I've heard that store owners used to put protest signs in order to save their stores from getting trashed by protesters. Maybe. Yeah, it certainly wouldn't surprise me. That seems like a reasonable tactic. But all that aside, let's get into the next subject, because I don't have much time left. I do want to emphasize, though, I feel bad for you, and I hope you can get some peace, and I hope they stop being shitheads. I do. They're not fascists. They're more than one sort of evil person. The Nazis weren't leftist, and those people aren't fascists. They're terrible, but terrible people come in all stripes. So that said, all of that said, let's get into mixed news. I'm not going to say it's good news, and I'm not going to say it's bad news, because it's mixed news. The reason it's mixed is because this could lead to good things, or it could just be another fucking brick in the wall, and I'm inclined to believe the latter. Trump administration, or sorry, not that one. Um, that one's just bad news altogether. Mr. Tough Guy. Trump delivers vicious takedown of Bolton. So Trump recently fired Bolton, and he said he on Wednesday savaged former National Security Advisor John Bolton one day after unceremoniously dismissing him via Twitter, blasting his hawkish ex-aide's hard-charging brand of diplomacy, and partly blaming him for launching the Iraq War. In a winding assessment of his tenure atop the White House's National Security Council delivered to reporters assembled in the Oval Office, Trump alternated between vicious criticism of Bolton and an insistence that they had maintained a warm working relationship. John is somebody that I actually get along with very well. He made some very big mistakes, Trump said, repeatedly referencing Bolton's invocation of a Libya model for North Korea denuclearization in April 2018. It set us back, and frankly, he wanted to do things not necessarily tougher than me. John's known as a tough guy. He's so tough he got us into Iraq. That's tough. Trump again claimed later in his remarks that it was he, not Bolton, who at times advocated for a more muscular foreign policy approach, despite Bolton's perceived proclivity for military intervention in championing of the 2003 invasion of Iraq from within former President George W. Bush's administration. Quote, John wasn't in line with what we were doing, and actually, in some cases, he thought it was too tough what we were doing. Mr. Tough Guy, you have to go into Iraq. Going into Iraq was something that he felt very strongly about. So, Trump is fucking firing a hawk, but then he goes into detail saying that this hawk wasn't hawkish enough, and that's why he fired him. So, I saw a ton of people who were praising Trump, right? A ton of people who were saying that he's suddenly showing his colors as a peacenik, man. Maybe this will be a change for the good, man. But Trump immediately says that the reason he did it is because Bolton wasn't hawkish enough. Mr. Tough Guy is not tough enough to do all these things we want to be tough about. So, mixed. Bolton is out of the work. Trump, it's probably still going to muscle through a bunch of bullshit because he's Trump. Let's not say it's anything more than that, because it's not. All it is fucking Trump deciding that one thing is no good for him because he can't be fucking hawkish the way you wanted to. And speaking of Trump sticking his fucking cock into shit, let's look at this. Trump administration readies ban on flavored e-cigarettes amid outbreak of vaping-related deaths. Let me just, before we get into this bullshit, let me just say, it's fucking nearly painful to constantly hear outbreak when it's like a few. It's like less than 100, and somehow it's an outbreak. Like, I talked about this multiple times in various places that while the measles outbreak was happening, there was still like a shit ton of kids being abducted from foster care and sold into basically sex slavery or something similar. 18,000 a year went missing, and they found out that a significant chunk of those were basically being shuffled off. Nobody gives a shit about those kids, you know? The outbreak of vaping related deaths. How many deaths are related to cigarettes, you know? How many deaths are related to those a year? Why is that not a persistent outbreak that's been happening for decades? It is. If this is an outbreak, if that's why we need to ban vaping, then fuck out of here with cigarettes, alcohol, sugar. This is yet another example of the government taking a thing that could apply to so many other things and using that as an excuse for their fucking big dick of the law, slamming into everything. Like, you know, fucking 3,000 people on 9/11. It's tragic. It really is. But they use that to justify the civilian deaths of like hundreds of thousands ever since, and like tens of thousands of troops' deaths ever since. Yeah, it's a good trade-off, right? 3,000 of ours died, so let's go establish regional footholds and make a whole series of business deals. You know, that's not shady at all. And let's use this as an excuse to kill like a huge amount more of the troops that we send over there. So it makes no sense. It makes no sense to say because of like less than 100 people, we have to ban e-cigarettes, vaping, etc. The flavored ones are apparently all they're banning. But let me get into this. Unless of course you're gonna ban cigarettes and shit, you know? Be consistent. It's hard for these people. So Trump says he's readying a ban on flavored e-cigarettes. HHS Secretary Alex Azar says he holds a policy meeting on Wednesday to discuss vaping. That's today. An outbreak of a vaping-related lung disease has sickened hundreds and killed at least 6 people. Look, it's tragic, but they kind of knew what they were getting into, smoking the unregulated or vaping the unregulated stuff. You know, it's like saying that there's an outbreak of cocaine-related deaths because a huge amount of those happen every year, much more than this, right? The Trump administration is preparing to ban flavored e-cigarettes as federal health officials call for restrictions to combat an outbreak of a mysterious lung disease that has sickened hundreds and killed at least 6 people, U.S. Health and Human Services Secretary Alex Azar told reporters Wednesday. The Food and Drug Administration is currently finalizing its guidance to remove all non-tobacco flavors of e-cigarettes, including mint and menthol, from the market within 30 days. Companies might be able to reintroduce their flavor at a later date so long as they submit a formal application and receive approval from the FDA. Vaping companies such as Juul have been criticized for hooking children on e-cigarettes with flavors such as mango and cream. The surge in underage vaping, which U.S. health officials have labeled an epidemic, is one of the reasons why they plan to ban them, at least until the FDA can thoroughly review their safety. Azar said after meeting with President Donald Trump at the White House on the issue. The Trump administration is making it clear that we intend to clear the market of flavored e-cigarettes to reverse the deeply concerning epidemic of youth e-cigarette use that is impacting children, families, schools, and communities, Azar said in a statement. We will not stand idly by as these products become an on-ramp to combustible cigarettes or nicotine addiction for a generation of youth. So, that's bullshit. The whole thing is bullshit. I'm scrolling through the bullshit so that you can see how bullshit it is. Please never buy into fear-mongering like this. As long as I can remember, in high school and up, my friends and people I knew smoked cigarettes. There were campaigns to get kids to not take cigarettes from friends because friends had cigarettes. Fucking maybe don't do this. Maybe allow kids the mango and cream flavor instead of the actual cigarette that kills people much more, right? But, you know, maybe understand that these kids get this shit illegally anyway, and they will in the future anyway. Like, the only thing this does is drive it to the black market. That's it. And it will be driven to the black market. Trust and believe it will be driven to the black market. People are not going to stop vaping because Trump decided it was so. You know? Fucking, I hereby order. Fuck you. Fuck off. Fuck out of here. Fuck you. There's zero reason to respect this sort of mentality. You know? Where everything must be tightly controlled because we can't just trust people to be people. Anyway. Let me check chat. Don't forget the dragnet surveillance. Not sure what you were referring to, but yeah, fuck that too. The American government is pretty... Oh yeah, because of the profitability of the war and the foreign intervention. The American government is pretty messed up. Yes, yeah, fuck them. I don't know why we aren't, like... Anyway. All governments are, yes. It's like making it illegal to prepare food you grew in your garden because a few people got food poisoning from doing it. Yes. Yeah. Definitely. Well, if they want to ban vaping, they should get rid of cigarettes as well. Those are way more dangerous. Yes, or maybe just stop banning shit. Can we do that? Can we, like, give people their liberty? You know, instead of threatening to take it away at the pain of death? America? Question mark? I'm extremely irritated at a host of things. A lot isn't the way it should be, and that's one of them. Don't fucking ban shit. You know, and I've seen people make jokes about it, you know, you'll take my vapes when you take them from my cold, dead hands. Well, fantastic. I'm glad you're a bitter clinger now. Like, this is a real good way to expose people who understand that you're not going to be able to regulate something away by making a law. Now just apply that to guns, anti-Trumpers, and we'll be somewhere. You know? Let me get to some other shit. We've covered most of it, and I just want to hit this Hitman subject one last time, probably for the next 8 minutes, because there are some comments I can respond to in that amount of time, and I think this really needs to be, because it was the analogy I used for something better, right? Let me scroll down. Sorry. They deliberately set the whole thing in motion. However, I don't think they deserve the same punishment as the killer. Maybe. Maybe if they were both punished equally, and by equally I mean, like, you know, X'd, maybe we could see something here, right? Maybe we could have a world free of hitmen if it just wasn't profitable or didn't lead to long-term vitality, you know? Yep, why you need someone asking for the government. Yeah, I see this point a lot, that government hitmen are, you know, fucking equally responsible to those in government. Yes, yeah. I mean, that's the thing. This analogy is usable in many places. Both the hitman and their employer are culpable, agreed. Yes, they're both culpable. The person pulling the trigger is responsible. Yeah, for pulling the trigger. But somebody makes the point later that that the person could stop the transaction at any point, you know? And this person mirrors an argument by Stefan Kinsella, makes the point that the person who orders, asks, or hires another to kill someone is using that person as a means to the end of committing the murder. He could either use a gun or he could use the hitman. Unlike the gun, the hitman is ultimately responsible for whether he goes through with it, so we cannot escape culpability as a mere tool. However, if it is reasonable to believe that the hitman will be an efficacious means to the end of murder, then the person hiring him is also to blame. Kinsella also notes that both can be 100% culpable for the action. It is not as though there is some limited amount of blame that must be divided. Agreed. Yeah, that seems reasonable. Seems like a reasonable praxeological analysis. Man uses means to achieve ends. But this apparently doesn't go over well with some people. Benjamin Hodgins. Why would I hire a hitman who doesn't carry professional insurance? That's what insurance is for. That doesn't address the question at all. We're talking ethical responsibility, not legal responsibility. Zach Marsicano says, I agree, which is why Ross Ulbricht is going to rot in prison. Now, a bunch of people responded to this by proving that he didn't hire hitmen, and, saying that maybe this site isn't evidence that he did, but whatever. Yeah, that's a separate subject. Um, if a person is not responsible for the logical reaction of people to their words and or actions, then a man who fires a gun is not responsible for the results of the bullet once it leaves the barrel. Of course, the hitman is also responsible for taking employment that is obviously immoral. Yeah, that makes sense to me. It's like, and that's the point I was making last time, is that if this was like authorizable ethically, then all you would need to do to be able to get whoever you wanted to kill killed, um, ethically, is to have a shit ton of money. And you could just keep on hiring hitmen, and it'd be unethical to go after you even though you've hired hitmen. It's bullshit. That's an interesting conversation. Maybe I'll talk about vigilante justice at some point, because I want to talk directly about what Stephen Wasserman says here. Yes, hiring a hitman is a violation of the NAP. Agreed. The client is responsible for whatever is specifically ordered in the contract. Yes, agreed. Not all their actions. The hitman is more culpable, though. Sure. I don't know what you meant, Jace, by "you kill with your heart first." That sounds like an 80s song. Obviously, the hitman isn't doing anything wrong. He's just following orders. That's a laugh. You got an inward smirk and chuckle from me. I'm not expressing it right now, and you couldn't see it even if I was, but they are both guilty, Matthew Robeson. Yes. I don't know what Anvil was saying here. Let me just see if they're fucking... Yeah. If a company makes a fatally dangerous product, the workers who made it are not on the hook if they follow the design correctly. Assembling a product isn't against the law and doesn't hurt anybody. Shooting guns is not against the law and doesn't hurt anybody. I'm not... So are you saying that maybe this is something I should ask directly, but I'm wondering if they're asking if the hitman is not responsible for their actions, if it's just the order giver who is. That would be an interesting and weird take. Then this person posts that. I'm not exactly sure why, because it has very little to do with any of it. I disagree. We are all responsible for our own actions. Yes, hiring a hitman is an action. The law says so too. The limit of freedom of speech and press and where communication is used to persuade others to violence. That's the legal perspective. I was making an ethical point. Well, yes, they are, no question. They paid a person to do a job, so yeah. That seems fair to me. Jeremy Stubbs says the hitman, aka the one who does the murdering, is morally culpable, but obviously the one initiating the course of events bears almost equal responsibility if the targeted individual suffers any damage or death as a direct result. I always assumed this was painfully obvious. Fucking me too. I don't know what, Jeremy Power? I don't give a shit. Like, this makes sense, right? Fucking, I don't know why this doesn't obviously make sense, but who would the hitman and hirer not share equal responsibility? That makes sense to me. The hitman can always refuse to pull the trigger, thus he is the most culpable. Okay, I can see that mentality. The hiring person put the murder into motion, so he is definitely culpable, but not to the same degree. The hirer could call out the hit just as easily as the hitman can bail on it. In any case, the murder would not happen if both individuals didn't set things in motion. Yeah, okay. Let's not forget responsibility is not a sum. Responsibility on one person's part does not reduce or eliminate responsibility on another's. David Robbins, maybe if it was a robot hitman and couldn't say no. Thought experiment, X pays Y to kill Z. Has a crime NAP violation been committed yet? I'd argue no. X chokes to death on a peanut. Later, Y kills Z as promised. So, clearly is guilty of killing Z. Is X still guilty in part of killing Z? You can be posthumously guilty of a crime. This seems like a reasonable response. I speed read it, but whether someone dies in the interim or has a change of heart but doesn't change the action is immaterial for determining whether something is a crime. See, I don't think it's this cut and dried. I think it's mostly the fact that, like, without the actual being set in motion, the person's life wouldn't be at risk. Hitmen don't just go killing nilly. Without fucking an order, they don't do it. So the order is what starts things off, and it's the initiation of the force. Without that order, there is no initiation of force. So that's the initiation. That's the spark. That's the impetus for the whole deal. In order of culpability for a state agent that murders someone, the agent who pulled the trigger, the agent's... I'm not... I think people misinterpreted this. I see a lot of arguments both ways. I'm glad you're willing to talk about it. I'm just going to see if this guy's... Yeah. I don't necessarily like the idea that people get absolved for their own actions like the Nuremberg defense, but at the same time, these employers are using the tools at their disposal and have a great deal of influence over the situation. I tend to see Hitler and the Nazis as all guilty. I also tend to see as the hitman and the employer as both culpable. Agreed! Don Cooper says, by that logic, if I hire someone to do anything, then I'm responsible for his or her actions. If I hire someone to fuck my wife and she gets pregnant, then I'm responsible for the kid, not the father. How absurd do you want to get? That seems reasonable to me. I mean, unless part of the contract stipulated that she was not to get pregnant, you know? Nobody is responsible for the actions of another human being, regardless why someone chooses to act. Everyone... Well, then I guess parenting isn't a thing anymore, because you can't be responsible for your kid. Kinsella's an idiot. See, I didn't even know Kinsella had an argument with people until I argued with Jack Lloyd about this. I had no fucking clue. But here we are talking about Kinsella a lot for reasons. So yeah, if there was nothing in the contract that said she wasn't to get pregnant and she got pregnant, then you fucking put it in your cart and you bought it, and now you have steak. Go home and eat your steak. I don't see how it's not done for that purpose. And then it gets into a conversation about whether maybe I'll do Hitman Part 3. Yeah, fuck it. I'll do Hitman Part 3, and we'll get into the minutia of whether or not it's ethical to vote. Because, yeah, I've got extreme views on this. Obviously. Which I didn't think were extreme. Either way. You know, as a kid, I always wanted to go to America. Well, I'm sorry for your loss. Or ban e-cigs so Big Pharma can make money on lung cancer again. Yeah, maybe. I mean, a lot of people had switched over. A lot of people were getting fucking healthier. And now this happens. Now, though, I think I'm going to stay as far away from it as possible. Yeah, good idea. Good on you. Do not. In my opinion, the excuse of the hitman's employer is just like the Nuremberg defense, doesn't hold up. A better free market solution would be assassination politics put forth by Jim Bell. I will look into that. Hitman, police, military is all the same. All are given permission by man to take another person's life. Yes, yeah. But generals are also ethically responsible for what their soldiers do. You're fucking... Oh, as long as we've got enough money and resources, we're totally ethical as long as we're just giving people orders. No, fuck that. The thing is, when one hires someone for a service that is going to infringe on the negative rights of others, they become responsible as well. Agreed. I don't know why that's fucking hard. Anyway, all that aside, it's just words until it's manifested. It's just payment. It's just transfer of enough capital to get it done. You know, a lot of these hits require money up front, so you're paying somebody to be unethical. You're transferring life force to them, time, limited labor that you will never get back to be unethical. I don't know why working by proxy to a goal you know is going to be achieved isn't doing the thing by proxy. I don't know why proxy suddenly changes it from, unethical to ethical. Oh, I got this other guy to do it, so it's fine. Gang leaders, generals, sergeants, fucking politicians, dictators, tyrants, all of them are ethically free and clear because we decided in the Church of Almighty whatever that, it's not unethical to order people to do evil things on your behalf. It's still immoral, but action is action. Sure, but the action of hiring them is an action too. So I don't know what that point is. But so I'll get into more of this tomorrow. Obviously, we haven't finished off the subject of hitmen. So there'll be hitmen. I guess the first 4 episodes of this were fucking optimism and how that sucks. And now the next episodes are about how hitmen and their hirers suck. Fuck it, whatever. This channel's never gonna be monetized anyway. It doesn't goddamn matter. Sure. Hitman Part 3 tomorrow. If you like this content, be sure to like and subscribe. Hit the notification bell. Subscribe to me on fucking Facebook, Twitter, wherever I am, and support it with money. Because money support is what this needs to keep going. And fuck knows YouTube is not going to give me money for this. But anyway, I gotta get off here. I'm playing some games with some family today, and I don't want to let anything get in the way of that. Because it's important to have a social life and to not lose contact with the people you care about. You never know how good you have it until you don't have it anymore. So cherish the moments you love, and cherish the ones that you never want to live without, because someday you might be forced with that decision. Any progress with your Discord group or Riot? Discord banned me. Check the other streams related to that. Riot, I would have to self-host. That's going to require some fundraising. So feel free to donate. There are plenty of ways to do that in the description, or go to any of my sponsors and buy something from them, because if you do that, they'll keep giving me ad money. Feel free to do any of that, because that's what this needs. Anyway, I'm going to stream at about 5 p.m. Eastern Time tomorrow. So if you're around then, feel free to show up and have a more negative Thursday, because a more negative time is what people love. They'll love to just have their day ruined, made worse. Anyway, I will see y'all tomorrow. Be well, and smash the state.